Hello.
Hello.
Here we are. It's Yoga Sutras time.
Hello.
Hello.
There's a bunch of people.
Boy, Bender is punctual today.
No, we are late, Samity.
Oh yeah, still right there.
Right there.
And Scott says, has it started? Well, it has now.
Yeah. That probably was already done before we got online.
Probably.
Hi, Raj.
Good
I see
day.
Raj there. Good day. Choppers.
Hello. Now, Raj.
Roseanne.
All.
And Roseanne is here, and Mir.
Hi, Mir. Hi, Roseanne.
There's Ineke.
And there's Ineke. She's probably not too far away, huh? And here, look at this. There's another big hello.
Hello from Joe.
Hello from Joe. Okay, so where are we in Yoga Sutras?
It's Yoga Sutra time.
It's Yoga Sutras time. And so we have gone through all of this stuff in this journey this time around through chapter 1 and what is yoga, and has substantially to do with reviewing the levels of samadhi and levels of awareness and practice. And
I don't have a cold, Mir. I just have a sniffle from the dust. So, but I can pretend. And I need some hot chocolate. I already have my hot chocolate for today.
And we have a lot in there about stabilizing the mind. Then we come into chapter 2, and there's discussion of minimizing the gross, the surface level of activity of mind, and then starts talking about the subtle aspects. And so then now where we are is I titled this section, Breaking the Alliance of Karma. What does it have to do with? Now we're really talking in greater depth about the samskaras, the deep impressions, and then how to deal with them. And then, of course, then that is sort of the whole rest, the subject of the whole rest of the Yoga Sutras is going through the details of what it's about to deal with the samskaras. What here in this section introduces the term the Karma Shaya, which means the field of karmas, which of course means samskaras, the deep impressions themselves. Okay, anything you would add to that, Ma, of what we're doing here?
Let's dive in. There's a bunch of sutras. Let's hope we can go through it nicely.
So,
yeah, and they're rich because they're contemplations on themselves, a bunch of them. They're really just one to pick and sit with.
Yeah, so we'll try to do it well, but again, mostly here hit on the surfaces of this.
Thank you. Stuff. Cup of tea.
Cup of tea. I'm going to take this picture out and put the picture of the sutras in. There we go. And there's Joe put in little music symbols there for
yes. Woo.
This time.
Yoga Sutra time.
Anyway, this front section here is all of
we could create a big wheel, Swamiji, with 196 little squares, and then turn it, and wherever it stops, that one will dive into. Then it becomes like a game show.
A game show, yeah, okay.
With its tunes.
Yeah, you can create that.
I'm not.
And so here, as most of you know, before we go through the individual sutras, there's an introductory thing, which is the intent of that is it sort of covers the whole theme of this section. The key to breaking the cycle of karma is the connection between the seer and that which is seen is set aside, the connection itself between I as Purusha and the entire field of samskaras.
Oh, that's all.
That's all.
Easy peasy. Snap.
Yeah. Snap. This allows one to avoid even the future karmas that have not been manifested. What did I link there with future karmas? Oh, I put
the quiver.
The arrows in the quiver. Let me go back here. That's what I put. That's the future karmas. The karmas.
Yes. Karmas.
The karmas. I can't talk. I'm still learning to speak English, that have not yet manifested. Ignorance or what?
Oh, I was going to say something very not interesting. I've learned that Dutch language has more words for different kinds of weathers than the Eskimos have words at all.
Dutch have
but I don't know.
More words.
But I don't know if it's a true fact, but that was somewhere mentioned.
For what?
For all kinds of weather, then the Eskimos have words at all.
Uh-huh. Oh, well. Yeah, that sounds important.
That's why I swallowed it.
Ignorance or avidya is the cause of this alliance. Remember the alliance to the Karma Shaya, the field of samskaras. Avidya, ignorance, which is the first, remember the first of the 5 kleshas.
Mm.
And eliminating this ignorance is the means of ending the alliance. If I can set aside the avidya, then I have separated myself as consciousness from the entire field of samskaras. This is really good news because the yogi approach is doing it that way, not some sort of psychodynamic or psychotherapy approach where we say, let's sit down and dig up an old memory and psychoanalyze the heck out of it and resolve that old childhood issue. I confess to a little bit of sarcasm in that. There's nothing wrong with that kind of approach. But the yogi says, I do not have to go through literally every detail, literally every samskars. I know that sometimes it can seem like that when we're talking about introspection within. It sounds like, wow, that means I have to dig up every one of these old seeds and do therapy on it of some kind. And no, it's not. What the yogi is really trying to do is break the alliance with the entire field.
Yeah. I remember once you said that we only have to create one little habit, and that is if when a samskara wakes up, that we let it go.
Yeah, it just.
Not in a letting go of doing something with it, but it just comes and poofs. And if we have that habit,
yes, it just falls away.
It just all falls away.
Consequences of the colorings. The colorings lead to birth, span of life, and experience. That's Sutra 13 of Chapter 2. So every one of these klishta vrittis, all of them, they lead to, think about this. It arises, that's called birth. It has a span of time, of life, and there are experiences associated with it.
Yeah, brilliant.
So if Roho's donut samskara arises again, that is the birth of the donut samskara. Yeah. And then it has a span of time in which it's active, and either it subsides or she gets a donut. So it has a span of time and it has experience.
Where it's alive and it dies.
It's better if it's alive and then she says dies, but I would say recedes back into seed form, and then the seed is burned. These are painful or not painful. That's just the nature of how this works. So a lot of this stuff here is background information, so to speak, that we want to internalize. We want to really understand these principles so that we can live it. And we realize, wow, whatever samskars I have when it comes to life, It's going to appear to be filled with happiness, or it's going to be painful. And that this is just the way it goes. And the yogi then wants
always in the play of duality.
Always in the play of duality. The subtler process of breaking the alliance. Descriptions of the nature of the objects are given in Sutra 18, brief outlines, along with the subtle states of the elements, earth, water, fire, air, space, an explanation of how the seer cognizes them. It is explained that the objects exist for the benefit of the seer, and that they cease to exist when one knows their true nature. Important point here, although continuing to be experienced by others. So when Rojo goes and sees that the entire donut store is just a manifestation of Brahman, it's just a manifestation of Prakriti and stuff, and that there's a lot of klesha going around, then she goes walking by and mostly just doesn't even notice the donut store anymore. Thank you for allowing me to play with your story, Rojo. That was because a couple days ago she got a donut. And so the point here in this part, this end part of this, but for what about all those other people going to the donut store? They don't see the donuts as Prakriti or as Brahman or just manifestations of oneness. They see them as yummy treats, and they're going to keep doing what they're doing. Now, to me, one of the most significant parts of this point being made here is that as we do our sadhana and we start to see more clearly the nature of the world and the nature of our own ragas and deveshas, our own attractions and aversions, and we start to move away from them, we notice, do we not, that the rest of the world and our family is not coming along with us on this journey? Mm-hmm. Just the way it works. And so the allurements, the entrapments of this world we live in, they get smaller and smaller for us through our meditation practices, and yet for others, they're just as alluring as ever. And so that's very useful for us to know. The ability to break the alliance with karma, as described in Sutras 12 to 25, is built on a foundation of prerequisites, including stabilizing the mind and minimizing the gross colorings, the gross kleshas, which I already mentioned. The key is discriminative knowledge. The 8 rungs of yoga and discriminative knowledge are the key tools in this process and are described in the next section after we do this big chunk here of Sutras 12 to 25. Viveka, I think you all remember that is there. Mm-hmm. Here's a summary of these sutras. Latent impressions, it's an attempt at a summary. Just follow through this sentence. This little paragraph here is very, very packed, so there's a lot of stuff there. Just try to let it sink in. Latent impressions that are colored, Karma Shaya, result from other actions, karmas, that were brought about by the colorings, the kleshas, and become active and experienced in a current life or a future life. As long as these colorings or kleshas remain at the root, 3 consequences are produced: birth, span of life, and experiences. Because of having the nature of merits or demerits, these 3, birth, span, and experience, may be experienced as either pleasure or pain. A wise, discriminating person sees all worldly experiences as painful because of the reasoning that all these experiences lead to more consequences, anxiety, and deep habits, samskaras, as well as acting in opposition to the neutral qualities. we see that, wow, it's just we keep getting sucked in over and over and over. Because, excuse me, because the worldly experiences, what do I have in my throat? Excuse me.
Do you want a sip of tea?
Yeah, I do, thank you. Because the worldly experiences are seen as painful, it is the pain which is yet to come that is to be avoided and discarded. This means the yogi is attempting to neutralize Klishta-vrittis, samskaras, before they arise. That's one of the reasons that we want to experience our latent unconscious, not so that we can have them turn into dramas or nightmares or anything like that, but so that we can neutralize the samskara while they're in latent form. Then we don't have to wait for it to play out in some yucky way in the external world. The uniting of the seer with the seen is the cause or connection to be avoided. If the Purusha just doesn't get entangled with the samskaras in the field called Karma Shaya, if the Purusha just doesn't get entangled with it in the first place, then
there's no troubles.
Then
there is no troubles.
Then there's no trouble, and I am free.
Free.
There we go. Now we got it free. That's sort of the deal.
Yes.
Oh, look, Rojo, Joe posted a little donut for you.
Oh.
There, it's a little chocolate donut too.
Ooh.
Whoa, you got her, Joe. That got a rise out of her. Okay. Off she goes. She's heading out the door. Not really.
There's a free from Roseanne, too.
Oh, is there a free? Yeah. Oh, boy, look at that free. There is a free. Thank you, Roseanne. The seer. What is the seer and seen business? The seer is but the force of seeing itself, appearing to see or experience that which is presented as a cognitive principle. So there is a seer using the instruments of personality and ego and mind and indriyas to see the donut. But the seer ultimately is the Purusha, the Atman, the pure consciousness. The essence or nature of the knowable donuts exists only to serve as the objective field for pure consciousness. So all of this material world out here and all of the field of Karma Shaya is experienced by the pure consciousness. It's a tricky thing to try to find words for his. It says when they exist to serve as the objective field, it can almost, I think this is probably the base, this is the way nature works. I'm guessing this may be the basis for a lot of religious views. If the world is here, then obviously somebody put it here for somebody called me. And this statement here, it's hard to find the words. I worked hard trying to find ways to arrange the words to describe this stuff, but it's more like instead of there being a doer that has placed these objects here for me, it's just built into the way reality operates. They serve as the objective field. All of this duality out here, we talk about duality and non-duality, and sometimes it's easy to say it as if duality is bad. Well, duality, this world out here, is here. It's the playground so that we can manifest as individual beings and play in the playground. That's not a bad thing. And so it's not like God made a boo-boo. Oops, you created this world, and what a boo-boo that was. It's not that. It's just the way reality works. And all of this is a field for consciousness. Although knowable objects cease to exist in relation to one who's experienced their fundamental formless true nature, that's the donuts that don't exist for Rojo anymore, but they exist for everybody else. the appearance of knowable objects is not destroyed, for their existence continues to be shared by others who are still observing them in their grosser forms. The donut store still has a lot of business. Having an alliance or relationship between objects and the capital S self, or Purusha, or Atman, there's a subtlety. Note here the words carefully. Having this alliance or relationship between the objects and the consciousness is the necessary means by which there can subsequently be realization of the true nature of those objects by that very self. Another way of saying that is, if we're going to experience awakening, we must first fall asleep. It's in the game that we are in, the game of life that we were in. It was necessary for us to do avidya. It was necessary to fall asleep so we can play the game out here in the world, and so we can come together and have satsang and talk about all this stuff and have the joy of awakening. You got to fall asleep first.
So even falling asleep is not bad.
And falling asleep is not bad. Yeah, and so this whole issue, this is part of the pairs of opposites thing. So we end up talking in language of good and bad. Mm-hmm. And it could accidentally sound like, oh, the whole of manifestation is a mistake. And this is, I think, one of the distortions that students of spiritual life, or so-called teachers, can go very, 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 very far off track and say this world is bad and it is evil and we should leave here. And in the worst case scenario, we end up with some religious leader who kills every one of his followers or convinces everybody that we should all suicide. To me, I think that's the worst case scenario of this.
Or imprinted in our mind that it's not real, it's not real, it's not real.
It's not real, it's not real, it's not real.
And don't interact.
We have to use, yes, we have to use our buddhi, we have to use our wisdom to see and understand the way in which we talk about things not being real. Because it's all consciousness, it's all one reality and all this. By causing a lack of avidya, or ignorance, by causing a lack of avidya, there is an absence of the alliance. Think about it. If the avidya is gone, if the ignorance is gone, if the incorrect seeing is gone, then you have freedom. And this is known as a state of liberation or enlightenment for the seer. Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody, anybody want to make a comment and agree upon it?
This is such a juicy.
It's juicy, but does what we just went through, does it make general sense to everybody? Is there any lingering? Is there?
Just saying free again.
Another free. Does this make sense? Anybody got any lingering question mark on any point in there?
I find this a very sort of contemplative section of the Yoga Sutras, which helps to put you into practice, which is just about to start next.
Yeah. And so this is it's all important, but this is a very critical part, because it's about, okay, now we've talked about all this stuff, we've built up to this, now what are we going to do about it?
Yes, it's like a macrocosm overview of what we're going to do in our own little macrocosm.
We're going to break the alliance between self or consciousness or Atman or Purusha. We're going to break the alliance between it and the entire field of duality. And so what happened by avidya, by falling asleep, by ignorance, by avidya, I got into the trap. And
we start maybe with a little few separate samskaras, but that's just priming the pump to really start to wake up to the general sense of avidya itself instead of specifics.
You're talking about starting by looking at a few samskaras?
Yeah, mostly we start to really see, no, that's not who I am. That's avidya, that's a klesha, that's raga, that's devesha, that's, oh, I fell into sleep, but I'm a woman. Or
this is the principle of attenuating the gross first. That was the sutras at the beginning of this chapter. The sutras at the beginning of this chapter first introduced dealing with the gross level of the kleshas, and then it mentioned doing the subtle.
yes.
So yes, we quite naturally start with things like donuts and identities as a person and all like that. But gradually, what we're wanting to do is break the alliance with the entire field of the Karma Shaya, the entire field of the samskaras.
Yes. Any vritti is not who we are. But that's a philosophical statement. We have to constantly wake ourselves up from it.
Yeah, well, and it just keeps coming. And this is what we notice in our meditation practice. When we sit for meditation, you notice that the streams of ideas and thoughts and memories just keep coming. And I don't have to pause and psychoanalyze every one of them.
Yes. Rosalind is saying something.
Yes, interesting, perhaps not understood completely, but the waking state is actually agreed upon reality. Yes, it seems to be. We all agree upon it. And as you and I start to see more clearly what this is about, this is the principle that says that for everybody else, it still exists. And so one of the outcomes of that is that who can you have this conversation with? And for most of us, many of the people in our lives, co-workers and even family members, the subtler we get with this stuff, the more difficult we find that it is to talk to somebody else. Terry says, good morning all. Few technical difficulties. I'm in the middle of a great discussion. I presume that means a discussion that's not part of what we're doing. I presume that's what that means. So
I think she's talking of us, Swamiji, that she just
she
fell into the middle of our great discussion.
She fell into
but I might be wrong.
He was actually sitting there completely broken from the alliance and all this to the
all these technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was like the whole field of fritties is like Wi-Fi and it just doesn't work, and we're all in bliss.
That's an interesting comparison. Sometimes the whole field is like Wi-Fi that's not working.
Wouldn't that be? And then click connection.
Click connection. So anyway,
all those data bits are flying back and forward.
Let's just scan through these verses down here. I don't want to spend a lot of time with them because it can bog us down. There's so much here.
And as you have offered, Swamiji, when something you read this, anyone sees this and wants, has a question or observation or something about any of these sutras individually, then we can, you can ask us that, and we might make a little separate video about that or something.
Yeah.
We're always able to do that.
Yeah, that's a good way to do these things. If somebody had one, we'll just make another thing. And this is what I'm happy to say, that there's some activity going on in the Table Talk group, which is wonderful. And so bringing up subjects like this.
It's nice.
And so here's where the Karma Shaya word is introduced. And there's this, and here is that which is seen, the drishta, and adrishta, with that which is unseen. The latent impressions result from actions that were brought about by colorings and become active or experienced anyway. And there's our little picture that's an attempt to show klishta and aklishta. So on the left side of each image it's very colored with attachment, aversion, or fear. There's no meaning to, there's no color coding here. I just chose colors that were available. And then they attenuate. And the Karma Shaya is the field, the repository. The timing of these playing out could be any time. In the present birth, or it may come unseen births. And there's our friendly little karma chart. This is how this stuff plays out. As long as the colors remain at the root, they lead to consequences. Mula, at the root. I quite like that concept of being at the root, because it's so easy, so common to try to deal with challenges of life on the surface level in a sort of behavioral psychology approach. We need to change behavior, yes, to make sure our behavior is healthy. So if Rojo succeeds only in the behavior of not eating the donuts, that doesn't solve the underlying deal. What she wants to do is deal with the donut addiction at the seed level. And here's just a little more description of these three things. They arise, they exist for a while, and there's an experience to go along with it. And there's our friendly little karma chart, and there's the samskaras in blue. They are experienced as either pain or pleasure, punya or apunya, if you want to memorize the fancy words, not necessary, but a wise, discriminating person sees all worldly experiences as painful. And note here, this is very much one of those places that's extremely difficult, whether it's Patanjali writing this in Sanskrit or us translating and talking about it. It's extremely difficult to find the right way to say it, because it could sound like, wow, everything is out here, it's painful. I guess I should put a gun to my head and get it over with. You know, and obviously that's not it. But when we have waves of insight about how difficult the world is around us, the yogi in us can see that as a moment of inspiration and can remember, wait a minute, there's something back here in Yoga Sutras that even said this, that there comes a point along the way that I see in effect that I'm totally entrapped. And the whole game, I'm sucked into the whole game. And wouldn't I like to be able to sit down and go into the deepest level of samadhi, where for at least a few minutes I have completely left the game behind? Because it just seems like everything out here is painful. Does that make sense? I hope so. Because of the dukkha. And one of the traps of life is thinking that I'm going to find happiness by removing the pain and leave only the pleasure. And it doesn't work, does it? Seeing all the worldly comes in time. This is about, this is a subtitle here, way of saying it. This is about wisdom, not depression. It can seem depressing or fatalistic. It can sound like a fatalistic. They're actually philosophers in the study of formal philosophy. Fatalism is one of the views. And fatalism is the thing that says everything is screwed up. It's fatalistic. Everything's going to hell. It's all bad. And like that. This is how we end up. Huh?
So why even try?
So why even try? And this is where you end up with spiritual organizations going extremely off track. And I think, too, this is a big way of saying what happens to people who suicide. When people have been interviewed who have done things like jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and about 1 out of 100 people live. And when these people are interviewed, the ones who live through it, mostly they seem to speak in one voice, that they realize as soon as they jump, they realize they made a mistake. And it's not as bad as it seemed to be. Not a perfect example of that. But we can, this that we're talking about, we can have little waves of a little bit depressing, say, wow, this yoga stuff is depressing. It's saying that the whole world sucks. And this is not good. This is a terrible philosophy, we may say. No, it's saying that all there is Satchitananda. All there is existence, consciousness, and bliss. Ultimately, that's what's there. But when we get caught up in the duality of the world, we can come to the insight that says, wow, it's all an obstacle. And so let's not get depressed over it, and let's not fall into a fatalistic philosophy. Name and form. The yogi comes to see that the primal elements, sattvas, rajas, and tamas, just keep changing names and forms. It is that incessant transitioning process that seems to be not worthy of continuing unabated. Eventually, through the practice of yoga, the gunas are resolved back into their cause, leading to liberation. This is referring forward to the last sutra of the Yoga Sutras. This is where it goes. We come to see that we often move in the wrong direction. That which is yet to come is what is avoided. And that's the principle. And remember, that's the principle of burning up the samskaras that have not even yet started to play out. So note in this section we're going through, there's a lot of subtle points here. And so if you have a book version of Yoga Sutras, or you want to come back and look at the website, maybe on your own time, if you're curious, come back and look in a little more detail. Or as Ma was saying earlier, if there's any part of this you have questions about or anything, tell me. I'll make another video talking about that sutra in greater detail. Remember, the spirit of what we're trying to do here in these reviews is to hit the highlights so that we're going through all of the Yoga Sutras in a way that the whole thing kind of makes sense. And here is a picture version of the seer and the seen. So the seer back here is the Atman or Purusha operating outward through a mind and through our senses, and there's the objects. And so this is the seen, and the experience is the little blue arrow, and here's the seer. The key is loosening the alliance between the seer and the seen. And then one of the nice things that happens, the samskaras become mere memories. They become mere memories. So Rojo may like to go to the donut store, but she works in an environment where there are all sorts of drugs available.
Why stop with donuts?
Huh? Why stop with donuts? Boy, when you can have all these opiates and all like this. But these have no effect on Rojo. They have no effect on her. It's not a big deal. Whereas we have some people running around that are so totally addicted to some of these things that she can write a prescription for, that they come to her almost begging, trying to get a prescription written for some of these strong opiates, for example. And so the mere memory means that in the mind field, in the Karma Shaya of Rojo, as far as personal usage, opiates are just memories. She knows what they are, but they have no relationship to her. There's no klishta. Not true with donuts. And even then, it's not strong. Now, if you talk about kitty cats, that's very, very different. The klesha of kitty cats in the Karma Shaya of Rojo is very strong. The klesha of opiates is virtually zero. The klesha of donuts is, I don't know what, 1 or 2 or 3 on a scale of 100. Maybe 5, she says, on a scale of 100. But you got the principle there? The rest of this chapter and the sutras in chapter 3 further describe the process of breaking the alliances. So, if we understand this principle here, we see, wait a minute, this is how it is that a tremendous amount of what we're doing with sadhana is preparation so that we can do the stuff, the subtler stuff inside that breaks the alliance. And then we notice over time that gradually we're having nice meditations, punctuated by moments where it might seem like there's a whole bunch of stuff. Scott said meow. Oops, I didn't see that Matri froze and wanted back there. I'll let her back into the lobby. There you are.
Yay!
I didn't notice.
I've been doing like this and this and... No, it's okay. I know you had your Yoga Sutra page on.
I had the Yoga Sutra page on and I didn't see it.
I had to refresh because it was getting too stompy on this side. Too wakey. But now it's good.
I didn't catch at the point that you said this, Rosalind, so I don't know how to respond to it. They have no interest whatsoever. Who has no interest whatsoever?
The family. You were talking about family, I think.
Yeah, I was talking about what?
You were talking about that we are understanding this, but more the family does not. So we move along, but we don't. But people around us don't.
Yes, got it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, no interest whatsoever. And the only way in which I would say that is people don't have interest whatsoever. I agree with you, but I would say that it's because they don't have the concept of seeds. You know this. You've met many, many people who want to alter their surface-most level of behavior. Just on the surface, I just want to break my donut habit. I want to quit going to Donuts Anonymous meetings, said humorously. And so I'm just playing with the word no interest whatsoever. I'm agreeing with you and at the same time putting a qualification in there that I think everybody has the different, I think it's true that everybody wants to be happy.
Yes.
Everybody wants to have a good life and feel good in the world. We may be doing it in ways that are very destructive, but I think that in some sense, everybody wants to be happy.
Some just want to only have a particular samskara neutralized, but not the whole of the field, and break the alliance with the whole field. Just have a nice, fluffy personality or something.
And so in that kind of spirit, yes, no interest whatsoever. Yes, in that way, no interest whatsoever. And this is what, in my opinion, has happened in the modern world of yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Most of what is being done in the name of yoga is just extremely far removed from what we're talking about today. Look at the subtlety of the conversation, of the subject we're talking about. And, it's just not no interest whatsoever in what we're talking about.
What did she just said? Again, I got half of her message.
I'm sorry, what, Ma?
She just posted another comment and I didn't see it fully.
To go to a certain level and then the deeper level scares people. Of course it's scary. Mm-hmm. That's because that scary is the fifth klesha. This is why. What, Ma? Yeah, it's fear. We do a video, we forget the reality of things, and I-ness arises, and asmita, there's a whole bunch of ragas, a whole bunch of deveshas, and we build a total identity, and then there's fear. It is scary. I think you have to have a pretty sharp intuition. I mean, a moment, even if it's only one moment of intuition that there's something more to life than what I'm seeing. And then because of that, we are able to accept the fact that there is scariness along the way. And then it's okay. Also, in the New Age spirituality, much focus on manifesting things like money and romance, totally missing the mark, yes. Yes. I remember one time Swami Rama said, and I think it was meant lighthearted, but there's some truth to it. He said theoretically there's two ways to be happy. And one is if you literally can fulfill every desire you have. If you could do that, then the state you're in is desireless, because there is no more desire. Everything is fulfilled.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, it doesn't end up working very well. And the other approach is, what we're talking about. Yeah. Attenuate the vrittis and break the alliance. And Rosalind says, yes, with a smile. Is that a smile or a frown?
No, that's a
That's a reflective No. All righty, so what do we got here? The final alliance is Broshin. And that's what the whole rest of all this stuff is about.
Cutting the umbilical cord, basically.
The objects or nodes are by their very nature illumination, activity, or nurture stasis. And I think we can get lost in the over-analysis of these three levels, but it is...
Grow subtler, subtler.
Yeah, just hold it in the simplest of way. Grow subtler, subtler. And don't turn it into something confusing. The same thing is that the gunas are in different states. We don't have to, I put some descriptions down here. I don't want to take the time here to go through this, what it means to talk about diversified, undiversified. You can have a relatively easy intuition of this, where if you go down here to this thing, there's just barely even a trace of a samskara. And then it moves outwards, and there's all sorts of flavors of donuts, so to speak. And this is, we're talking supreme non-attachment. The seer is but the force of seeing itself. The significance of this, just as a reminder again, is not that I, as a personality, I as a manaschitta ahankara and buddhi, I as an identity called me in the seer. But when it says here seer, the seer is actually the force of consciousness itself. It's not that there is an identity called me.
And it's not with eyes, like physical eyeballs or the senses.
And
just
again,
a way to...
we have something very clumsy in choosing language. Mm-hmm. But it's saying that when we say the drashta, the seer, we're really talking about the consciousness that is seeing itself and appears to operate as an individual. And here's a reminder again that the objects, the knowables, are there because they serve as the field for us to live in the world. It's the playground. Although the knowable objects cease for one who sees everything as Brahman, everything exists, the duality still exists completely for everybody else, even though you are seeing beyond it.
Indeed, wow, Rosalind.
Yes, indeed, wow, big wow.
Wow.
Yeah. The actual force of seeing, wow. And this, Roz, is why this term self-realization is used. It doesn't say Rosalind realization. It says self, Atman realization, Atmajana, the Atma standing alone. So here again we have, you have to fall asleep so that you can wake up. The avidya allows there to be the appearance of an alliance. This avidya, we say, when we talk about avidya or ignorance or forgetting our true nature as being the ocean of consciousness, it can sound bad. But there's a way in which it's not bad. It's the precondition that allows you and I to be out here as individuals. There's nothing wrong with being an individual Swamiji or an individual Matri or an individual Rosalind or an individual Roho. There's nothing wrong with that. But where we have pain and suffering is that we forget the true nature. if we know our true nature and that I am wearing a shirt that is basically a personality, then that's pretty cool. Then we really, really get to enjoy living in this world. This is what Swami Rama, this is, I think, the meaning behind, ultimately, I figured out when Swami Rama told me one day he wanted me to enjoy life. And boy, I watched him. The man always had this smile about him. There was this presence that was always in joy. And so we meet people like that. We say, wow, here's a model of what this is like. So this avidya is a precondition that allows us to manifest as an individual person, and that's not bad. By causing a lack of the avidya, then the alliance is broken, and there is liberation or freedom. And there's our friendly word, kaivalya. And this is the goal of Yoga Sutras. Some people say that the goal is samadhi, as in rung 8, and overlook the fact that the goal is introduced here in Sutra 25, a sutra before the introduction of Viveka and the 8 rungs, which includes the word samadhi. The goal is actually kaivalya. It's here, it's in the last sutra of chapter 3, and it's in the last sutra of chapter 4. This is what we're trying to do, is have the drishti, the power of seeing itself, the Atman or the Purusha, is standing alone, free.
Free!
Free! And there is our big word, kaivalya. And so it's when the question mark gets to stand alone.
And it becomes an exclamation mark instead of a question mark.
All righty. So I think we did good. I think we went through this whole thing nicely.
Very nicely. 3 minutes on the clock.
And there's 3 minutes on the clock. I don't have anything for an hour from now, so I'm thinking we're just going to not do that, and we're going to take a walk or something.
Okay, Swamiji.
Skip that one today.
I'll see you then tomorrow at the Sunday satsang.
And then we'll do Sunday satsang tomorrow, but we'll do tonight too.
Wait,
Now we're sleeping.
To the thing, remember?
No.
I'm sorry, say along.
Did I get sucked into that?
Yes. You said we'll have to cancel.
You didn't remind me.
I'm reminding you now.
Okay, all right. So the next time we're together is Sunday satsang. Okie dokie. So let's take a vacation. We'll all have a vacation, okay? Free. There is a big free from Roseanne.
That's a nice last one.
Huh?
That's a nice last one.
Let that be the last word. Thank you, Mir, for playing. Bye, Scott. Bye, Gurvinder. Bye, all. Have a wonderful meditation, okay? Have a wonderful, wonderful meditation. And remember to find the silence. Doesn't mean just quiet room, you know. This word silence means that deepest inner, after the alliance is broken. After the Om. That's the meaning of Om. Follow the Om to where it's going. We start with just mere auditory silence, but it grows and it grows and expands internally. Eileen. Hi, Eileen. I didn't see you pop in the first place.
And Maribel and Hashim.
And Maribel was there, and Hashim was there.
Nice.
And Raj says Om. But we have our official last free. So thank you all for playing. Have a great day and a nice meditation, okay?
Dooey dooey. Bye bye.
Dooey dooey.